Hi, Mary. How are you?
Fine,
Nice to
Lainey.
see your
It's
bright
good to
smile.
see you too. How have you been doing?
I've been doing good because I have spent the better part of this week in silence, which is my best friend. Because unless I do so, I tend to go off course. And so by spending time alone and just thinking and getting in touch with myself, I get back on track again. So that's what
That
I've been doing.
that is
How about you?
beautiful. Well,
You
I need
think
to do
so?
that more often. No, it is beautiful. I don't think that we give ourselves that time or allow ourselves to have that time, which is so important.
It absolutely is.
It is for our well-being, for our health,
Mm-hmm.
for how we approach other people and things that come up in our life.
And that's how I find solutions to issues that I am grappling with by just being quiet. And for some reason, it just comes. So, yeah, I've been sitting watching the birds debate, discuss, fight, aerodynamics, and getting my problems solved. So,
That's beautiful. Well,
anyway.
good advice to everybody. I hope everybody hears that because it's important to do that, especially in the times we're facing today.
Yeah.
Well, we have Maria Denzin here with us, and we're very excited to have her talk to us about her life and experiences. And, Maria, I don't know you as well as I would like to know you, but I do know that you're incredibly passionate, committed, helping others. You've helped our organization, the Women's Conference Committee, tremendously. And I know that you pick up dogs and foster them out of the kindness and bigness of your heart. But I also do know that your husband left you not too long ago, and I think that was a very sudden, traumatic time for you. And I'd like to know a little bit more about that if you're willing to talk about that.
Sure. And thank you. Thanks for the invite. And thanks for the opportunity that I've had to reflect on quite a lot of things this last week. So, my husband leaving brings up a regret for me. And the regret is that I didn't divorce him many years ago. And that has only come to me with some hard work. I think that being of this certain age, certainly past dating, past having another man in my life, to have my husband leave was first of all very embarrassing. I thought about what the community would think, and I thought about, oh gosh, what does that say about me? And so what I did is I did some work on that. I went to therapy. I also belong to Codependence Anonymous. We talked about it there. I have a sponsor. And this has been just quite a revelation. As I said, what I know now is that I was doing what I think a lot of women do. And I think it's something we're taught. And that is that I was loyal for too long.
May I ask, how long were you married?
29 years.
29 years.
Yes,
Wow.
29 years. And I should add that he was my fourth husband.
Wow.
So yeah, it's taken a while for me to get the lesson here, and this is what I have discovered. I in codependency, or it just a lot of women, we are taught that loyalty is a plus. We're also taught to be nice. We're also taught to smile when you don't feel like it. We're also taught that being angry is not very ladylike. We're taught a lot of things, oftentimes by our moms, who were taught by their moms. And so we come from this long history of being, I don't want to use the word submissive because that has a lot of charge to it. But we oftentimes go along to get along.
Yeah. Or we're told to be quiet. I know I was
Yes.
told that often as a child and
Right.
growing up, that I was too loud.
Yeah.
And I don't think it had to do with the volume of my voice. It was more about the passion behind my voice.
Oh my gosh! Well, I can certainly relate because my when I was growing up, my dad, my last name is Denzin. I took his name. He's a wonderful, wonderful guy. Also an alcoholic, but still a nice guy. and he saved my life, literally. My mom, also an alcoholic, uh, used to be physically abusive with me. And when Keith Denzin stepped into the fold and married my mom, he actually made her stop doing that. And
Wow.
so he was kind of my knight on a shining knight on a white horse, which, by the way, ties into this idea that a man is going to rescue me, that a man has a certain role that he's supposed to play, and that part of that role requires me to be the helpless one, me to be the one looking for help.
Damsel in distress.
Damsel in distress, right. And so I think that, you know, this when one divorces, when one makes these decisions, I think that for me, it's been really important to look at what is really going on here. And what I've come to find out is that I have been listening to my mother's messages for years and years and acting as if those messages were accurate. Um, One of her messages, well, several, she gave me a lot of messages, one of which was, you have to have a man. You have to have a man in your life. And the interesting part of that message was then she went on to say, you won't like them. They're a big pain in the butt. They will disappoint you. They aren't really good people, but you gotta have them.
Wow.
And so I have lived 4 marriages under that dictate, that I had to have a man in my life, but also I wasn't going to respect them. I wasn't going to honor them because they were really incompetent. They were these people that I just had to have hanging around. And so, of course, that really influenced my choices. So upon reflection, what I see is I have always chosen really damaged men, and I've made them my projects. Now, interestingly enough, all of these men in my life have always told me, oh, I admire you so much, Maria. You're so strong. You're so capable. You know, you've been through so much and you've come out the other end and blah, blah. And then I find that these men really don't like that. You know, that
a strong woman is threatening.
Yes,
threatening and too bossy and too much.
Too
And so,
much.
back to your comment, I was also told that I was too much when I was growing up. I was too loud. I was too, oh, don't tell Maria. She's too, they didn't use the word histrionic. That's my word. But she's just too much. Yes, too sensitive.
Ooh.
Too sensitive. And then as I got older and found out that my real father was Italian, then I was told I was too much like a wop, too much like this Italian. And so as I grew up, and then of course I have the other message about needing a man, my role was set for me. I wasn't supposed to be smarter than, I wasn't supposed to be more competent than, I wasn't certainly supposed to earn more money than a man. But the reality was, because my mom had told me these men are really incompetent and really need taken care of course I picked men that I was more competent, however we want to define that, and earn more money. So back to my husband leaving me. He should have left a long time ago, and I should have left a long time ago. Certainly at least 15 years into the marriage, I knew that this was something that was not meeting my needs, and my husband knew that I was continually emasculating him, and he and because of his brokenness, he was never able to set a boundary and say, "Hey, I don't. This isn't meeting my needs either." So yeah, he left, and it was we finally parted ways over money. And it was the money that in my 401k, money that I'd earned with a 25-year career as an executive at the Boeing company in Seattle. And that money sat there and just was such a temptation. My husband always wanted me to spend it. He wanted to buy a new car. He wanted new gadgets. He wanted new things. And he would always say, well, you've got all that money there, which wasn't, by the way, all that money.
All that much.
Yeah, not that much, because of course I've always gotten divorced in community property states, and so I've always had to split my 401k and all my retirement and stuff.
Wow.
So you'd think that the lesson would have been learned a little sooner, but that's, I guess, what I want to talk about. The lessons for me come when they're supposed to.
Mm.
And I was trying to think this week about what's been the most challenging to me over my life, and how do I get to be where I'm at today based on all those things and kind of some poor decisions and some bumps, real bumps along the way. And I realized that I really feel like I'm meant to be right now, right here in Mexico, doing what I'm doing on my own as a single person. And so it feels really right. So
that's wonderful.
Yeah, it is wonderful. And it's come, yes, at a cost, at some costly lessons, some hurtful lessons. I do not regret my husband leaving at all. And it's not because he's not a nice man or that he didn't have his own issues, and certainly there's always two sides to every story. But really, what I've come to realize is that challenges come, but that as a woman, I am really adaptable. That I have had challenges throughout my life. No, I don't think any worse or bigger than anybody else's, but certainly they, were things that at the time I thought were big. And I realized that as a woman, I think that if I really think about my essence and what I'm about, it is about adaptation. It's about always being able to go with the flow, not in an adaptive way and submissive way, but saying, oops, okay, well, this isn't very good. What can I do differently? How can I make this okay? And I think that's a thing that women do. I know so many strong, brave, courageous, fabulous, awesome women. And every one of them has a very interesting story.
Yeah.
Every one of them has overcome a lot of challenges.
Yes.
And I think it's because they don't get into, oh, woe is me, very long before they start thinking about what do I need to do? What do I need to, and many women have taken on huge challenges and have come out of it really well. And I think that's what I'm learning. So at my advanced age here, without a husband, I'm living in Mexico. It was not the plan. 5 years ago, when we moved to Mexico, I was married, and I realized then that I did not have enough income saved to be able to take care of both myself and my husband in the United States. It was just going to cost way more money as we aged than I could afford. So the move to... Yeah.
When you say did he not contribute financially to the marriage?
He paid for his share of the bills. However, he was an entrepreneur. He had gone bankrupt a couple times. He had no savings. He had massive debt. He had no life insurance. He just didn't have anything other than the day-to-day expenses. Yeah, so there was this inequality. I'm the saver. So I'm the one that would always have the bank account. I'm the one that owned the houses. I'm the one that had the extra money. Yeah, and I knew that about him pretty much, and still married him anyway.
No prenup?
No.
I think it's so interesting how you talk about that women, we tend to be able to go through such extreme, sometimes tragedy, and really are able to move. I mean, I'm not saying immediately,
No.
it takes
Yeah.
time and a process, but are able to move on even stronger.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I grew up in a home that was an alcoholic home. Now, you know what? Growing up, I didn't know that. I mean, it was normal. Everybody got drunk and fell down the stairs and did, crazy things.
Right, you figure everybody else there
Yes.
has to be like that too.
Exactly,
I mean,
exactly.
yes, I had
Yeah.
a similar experience in some respects, and I thought, well, everybody's home's like this, or this is how
Exactly.
families are, right?
Right.
Until you start, as you're older, maybe going to those homes, meeting up with friends, seeing their parents, and realizing, oh, wait a minute.
I did not know about anything about alcoholism until I decided to get sober and went to treatment and then went to AA. Been in AA now for 37 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So that was a big change. And there was this awareness about my poor Keith Denzin, my poor stepdad, who could never get sober and died of alcoholism at age 56. And my mom, who we did take to AA, and she just thought it was so sad to hear all those other people and all their problems. So, but my sister got sober. She was a stone alcoholic, and so did I. What I know, though, my point in all that is that I didn't know. What did I know? So I went through a good third of my life as a drug user and alcoholic, really not knowing that that was the problem. I just thought I was insane. I really did. I thought that there was something horribly wrong with me, that I couldn't remember what I did the night before, or that I somehow ended up in a different state missing my dress. I just thought I was crazy. I didn't know that, I had the disease of alcoholism. My parents were poor. My mother was a domestic worker. My dad worked in a steel mill until he was not able to work. Um, and I grew up in a neighborhood that was Italian and poor, and I went to a school that I was bused to that was not. And so I learned really early on that I was different then, and that I didn't look like the kids that were in high school. And so I turned to drugs and alcohol because, hey, that's what you did. That's not a sad story in my mind. What I mean is that, first of all, I adapted. I was a functioning alcoholic. I actually got quite successful, went to school, got a master's degree, all the time being a drunk, because I'm adaptive. Then I got sober. That really changed my life, changed my husband, because he was an alcoholic. So that was husband number something that we're, he had to stay drinking and I couldn't. A new life meant a new way of living, a new way of looking at things, really questioning some things that I thought I knew. And the biggest thing that I got from getting sober was I, for the first time in my life, realized that I had power, that I was smart, that I was pretty. Up until then, I didn't think or feel any of those things. And so I lived a life that, if you ever want to go to AA meeting, I can tell you that story. But my point is that was a big change, and I learned to adapt, but not in a submissive way. I do not mean, and in this, as I'm talking, I don't mean that I became adaptive and submissive. I found my own self, and so that's what I'm learning, is that all of the things that have happened to me are all about finding my own self and liking my own self. And that took work and time. I think that's another thing. Women grow up with a very conditional message. You would be pretty if you got your nose fixed, or you weren't so heavy.
Right. Yes.
You would be smart.
Yeah.
You would be smart if, you just did this and that. You could be the vice president if your shoulder pads were big enough and you weren't too assertive. You could be, if it was always conditional. There's been research done on how moms raise daughters and sons. Mothers raise sons differently. They never say if. They say you are smart. You are handsome. You can do that. You're great. They never put the if in. But with daughters, they always do. So all of us grow up with a big conditional, like we always got to do something to be. And what I'm learning in my older age is that that's bullshit.
Yes, yeah.
That there is no if. I am who I am. And some people will like that and some people won't. I am smart. And sometimes that gets me into trouble and sometimes it doesn't. I get to choose who I spend my time with. That's one of the glorious things about being an older woman.
Yes.
Is that I get to absolutely choose who my friends are, who my family is, what I do with this precious time that I've been given. And all of that has come by learning who I am, learning who I am, what my essence is. So you mentioned, as we wrap this up, you mentioned the beginning about the dogs. Well, I came to Mexico, I built a house. And I built a house under really wrong thinking, under thinking that straight lines should be straight and things should fit together well, and that and so I got shingles twice building my house, and that taught me that mañana is not tomorrow, that perfect does not matter. If it works and it's functional, it's okay. Boy, that took that shattered my perfectionism.
And I love the fact that you said flow with, because that is absolute strength.
Right.
It really is. Water is the strongest element on earth because it can wear a rock down. And so to be able to be like water and flow with whatever happens eliminates the resistance.
It does. And that whole resistance, with using your analogy, I don't have to be resistant. The battles that I choose now to fight are things that I'm choosing. I don't say I can't. I can say I won't, or I don't want to. I don't make excuses anymore for saying no. So coming to Mexico was another huge challenge, big change. And yet, as I said, I really feel that my higher power, that spiritual thing that is always with me, I feel that I've been led here to really find myself. And I needed to jettison the man. That was part of it. I needed to say, that lesson is old. It doesn't work for me anymore. And I also don't have to look at men as being less than or incompetent or somebody that has to be around.
So, Maria, what would you say to the listeners in terms of advice, women that are in the same position as you were? What would you tell them to help them go through the process?
I would say that we have been probably most likely been given messages by caring people who wanted the best for us, but messages that do not work and actually aren't even true. And that it's critical to identify those messages, to really confront them, and to really give yourself a different message. It does not mean that you have to stand in front of the mirror every morning and say, I am awesome. But it does mean that you question the old messages about your body, about your self-dom, about your goals, about the things that you love, and know that when you finding self-dom, finding oneself, and being okay with that is so freeing. I am much freer today as an 80-year-old woman than I ever was in my entire life. And I have more joy today and more gratitude. So that's it.
I also sense that you have more peace.
Oh gosh, yes. Serenity is still elusive, okay? But when I have serenity, I know it, just like you with your flowers and looking at being still. I can actually be with myself and be perfectly okay. I do have 3 dogs, and I love them, but I am okay with myself. And it's taken all the stuff.
That's a gift. That's a real
gift. It's a gift.
It really is, because most people do not know themselves and are therefore uncomfortable.
Exactly. Yes. And again, I say it's back to the messages that we got when we were little sponges, when we couldn't question it. And so it just became, I made up this word, indelled. It's part of my cellular structure. But the thing is that if I start questioning it, start looking at it, and start taking advantage of, internet or friends or Al-Anon or Coda or like me, AA, to look at life and my part in that life differently, knowing that I'm here on this planet for a reason. I do not have to be Mother Teresa. I do not have to invent something. I don't have to become rich. I don't have to be the world famous anything. But I do have a place on this planet. I do have a place on the earth. And what I believe is that my place is to do a kind thing. And I find that I can do that with animals and be fulfilled.
That's beautiful,
That is
Maria.
really
Thank you
wonderful.
so much.
Okay, thank
oh
you.
my gosh, that's beautiful.
Yeah,
Thank
it
you.
really is.